Hello again, this is Houndawg, bringing you another vintage FSX aircraft from the past 100 years of U.S. Navy carrier aviation. Today is 31 October 1946, and we are in the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star on board the USS Shangri-La CV-38. The Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star was one of the early jet aircraft designed and built as a result of the Army Air Corps Commanding General Hap Arnold's initiative to use borrowed British research data and engine technology to help jumpstart the U.S. Army's jet aircraft program. The aircraft became the first jet fighter used operationally by the United States Army Air Forces. On 16 October 1943, Lockheed received the formal contract for the XP-80 Shooting Star, over 4 months after design work had already begun. Beginning a project with a handshake would prove to be a common practice within the Lockheed Skunk Works, a nickname taken from the secretive moonshine factory in the comic strip Little Admirer, and given to the engineering team working in seclusion on highly classified projects. The first XP-80 prototype was delivered 143 days later on 16 November 1943 to Muroc Army Airfield, now Edwards Air Force Base. The P-80 had a conventional all-metal airframe with a low wing and tricycle landing gear. Its wings were straight since it was designed before the Allies captured German research data that showed the speed advantages of swept wings. The Shooting Star was also the first U.S. operational jet fighter to have an engine in the fuselage. The P-80 was powered by an Allison J-33 centrifugal compressor turbojet with 4,600 pounds of thrust for a maximum speed of 600 miles per hour. The P-80 testing program proved very dangerous, with the loss of 3 aircraft in the fatal crashes of the Lockheed Chief Test Pilot Milo Burkham on 20 October 1944 and the top-scoring World War II Army ace Major Richard Bong on 6 August 1945. The 3rd aircraft was lost on a test flight on 20 March 1945, with newly promoted Chief Test Pilot Tommy Levere suffering a broken back after bailing out. During testing, the XP-80 reached a top speed of 502 miles per hour, making it the first turbojet-powered Army aircraft to exceed 500 miles per hour in level flight. The Shooting Star began to enter service in late 1944 with 12 pre-production YP-80As. In late 1945, 2 of these fighters did see limited service in Italy on reconnaissance flights. However, due to delays in delivery of production aircraft, the Shooting Star did not enter actual combat during World War II. Experienced fighter pilots initially transitioning to the P-80 Shooting Star were not used to flying at high speeds without loud reciprocating engine noise to judge the aircraft's speed, and had to learn to rely on the airspeed indicator to prevent overspeeds. Shooting Stars did eventually see combat service in the Korean War, but were limited to reconnaissance and ground attacks since it was no match for the high-performance MiG-15. On 29 June 1945, 2 P-80A Shooting Stars were transferred to the Naval Air Test Center at Naval Air Station Patuxent River, Maryland for testing. 1 P-80 was modified for carrier suitability testing. These modifications included a retractable tailhook that was attached with a swivel joint for compensating for off-centerline landings, 2 catapult bridle cable hooks attached under the wings near each main landing gear, a separate single catapult pendant cable hook under the nose, and a catapult holdback fitting attachment point at the bottom rear of the fuselage. On 31 October 1946, only a few months after the initial carrier trials of the Navy's own Douglas F-H-1 Phantom, the Navy's P-80 Shooting Star was loaded aboard the aircraft carrier USS Franklin D. Roosevelt at Norfolk, Virginia for carrier suitability testing. The following day, Marine Major Marion Carl made 4 deck-run takeoffs and 2 catapult launches with 5 arrested landings. A second series of trials was held on 11 November. The result of these trials convinced the Navy that the P-80 was not an aircraft they wanted to pursue, but the final Carrier trials report on 23 June 1947 officially confirmed the primary reasons for the Navy declaring the P-80 unsuitable for normal carrier operations. These reasons included the aircraft's high landing stall speeds and long engine turbine spool-up times resulted in an unsafe and unacceptable response to wave-offs. The aircraft had a tendency to rock back and forth and bounce on landing, causing the hook to skip over the arresting cables. The P-80 was limited to catapult launches only, since it required over 300 feet and 35 knots of wind over the deck to marginally achieve a free deck launch. The engine turbine spool-up time was over 2 minutes, which delayed and disrupted the carrier's normal catapult launch sequence. The aircraft had the tendency to float over the arresting cables, requiring the pilot to fly to the deck and flare, which was contrary to the normal carrier landing approach, requiring a fixed nose attitude and using power to control rate of descent and altitude. The wings did not have the structural strength to survive a catapult launch with the 160-gallon wingtip fuel tanks required by a designated overload fighter. The P-80's fuel consumption was considered excessive. The aircraft's lateral stability was deemed unsatisfactory. And finally, the Navy claimed longer pilot training was required because typical mistakes made by new pilots in conventional aircraft would be fatal in the P-80. While it was not cited in the final report, the Shooting Star was also at a disadvantage having only one engine when the Navy preferred 2 jet engines for safe at-sea carrier operations. Although the P-80 Shooting Star was deemed unsuitable for carrier operations, it did go on to become an important Navy aircraft. In 1949, production delays of Navy jet aircraft resulted in 50 F-80Cs being transferred to the U.S. Navy from the U.S. Air Force for land-based jet transition training. The Navy gave these aircraft the designation TO1 and later TV1. The success of these aircraft led to the Navy later procuring 698 T-33 Shooting Stars as the TO2s, TV2s to provide its primary 2-seat jet trainer aircraft. Lockheed went on to develop a carrier-capable version, the T-2V Sea Star, which went into service in 1957. A total of 1,714 single-seat P-80 or F-80 aircraft were manufactured by the end of production in 1950, and the 2-seat TF-80C became the basis for the T-33 trainer, of which 6,557 were produced.